have, I have a confession. Now I'm going to get a little personal and show you my nightstand. My confession is I'm addicted to business books. I have piles of them at home and in the office. Also, I'm a vigorous podcast listener. And these books and podcasts are mostly about two topics: business and marketing and personal growth. We don't call it self-help anymore. I feel a personal responsibility to myself and to the field to pay attention to what's going on in the world of marketing and technology and in the changing world around us and the impact that it has on arts organizations. So I want to be very, very clear. Everything I'm about to tell you are other people's ideas. I am just gathering them for the arts and organizing them in a way that I hope is useful to all of you. And I want to call out a few people here. Mark Schaefer, the author of The Marketing Rebellion, who is on the CI2I podcast, has influenced me greatly this year. Brene Brown is always influencing me. All the folks on here, these are all amazing books. And I'm also going to talk a lot about, of course, Seth Godin, duh. Also, the CEO of HubSpot, Brian Halligan, is incredibly influential. And I learn a ton from Oprah's Super Soul Sunday podcast. Second plug of the conference for that. So I've been thinking a lot about evangelism, which is the spreading of the gospel by public preaching or personal witness, or zealous advocacy of a cause. And it used to happen here, very, very one-to-one, right? Or here at the water cooler, also very one-to-one. But now it happens here, right? Which is far more powerful. Where do I go to see what my friends and colleagues are up to? Christopher here and Nick and my friend Jill at the Hollywood Bowl. Of course, that's how you know what your friends and family are up to, because they put it on Instagram. This is marketing happening without marketers. We are not doing anything. And you know what? We are no longer in control. Brands used to be in control. We used to control the message. We used to write the ads. We used to write the subscription brochures. And that is how people found out about us. And those were the stories that were told. But now, all of the communication happens person to person. Think about how you learn about arts experiences or any experience now versus even 10 years ago, before people were so connected through the web and social media. And think about where you go when you're looking for a recommendation. So here I asked for vacation fiction reads, and within a day I got 44 recommendations. The publisher of these books, they did nothing. My friend asked, I'm going to London, what should I do? And I said, well, obviously you should see The Inheritance, which I'm going to talk about more later. The producers of The Inheritance didn't do anything for that, right? They produced an amazing show that I loved and wanted to talk about. So since I started CI, I've been quoting Seth Godin's Permission Marketing, and I think one of the highlights of last year was when we all did this together. So let's do this. What is permission marketing? Turning strangers into friends, friends into customers, and customers into evangelists. That was a little weak, but okay, we'll go with it. So today we're going to focus on the evangelist part, which is the most important part in 2019. Oh, and I'm supposed to define what OG means. Who doesn't know what OG means? Vulnerable moment. Everyone knows what OG means? Great, I don't have to do it. So with the funnel model, which is the model we've used and is still very valuable for lots of things, the problem with the funnel, and I said this at boot camp last year, is it gives all the credit to sales and marketing and no credit to word of mouth, which in 2019 is your most powerful force. Funnels lose momentum at the bottom. And customers, which are the center of your marketing, are not part of the model, and that is the problem. So with people more connected than ever, we have to have a model that puts customers in the center. So Seth Godin, in his book, Permission Marketing, in the late 90s, had this line that I've never forgotten. You have to turn your funnel into a megaphone and give it to the people who care about you so your customers can do the marketing. This was really advanced thinking for the late 90s. This was before Facebook. This was before Instagram. This was in the early days of email, right? Last year at boot camp, Seth Godin talked about the minimum viable audience. accepting the idea that mass is dead. We cannot afford to interrupt people with our messages anymore. It does not work. So what he encouraged us to think about is the minimum viable audience. Who is the smallest amount of people that you can talk to, that you can afford to talk to, that you could talk to really well, who really care about you? This idea of mass, it's how we're trained to think about marketers, right? Even the quoting impression numbers. Impressions don't really matter. It's how many people that you impact matters. So this idea of top of funnel mass marketing is dead. We have to accept that. We have to accept that as marketers. And so the idea of minimum viable audience is, how do you get 10 people excited about what you're doing? And how do those 10 people tell 10 more people who tell 10 more people, then they start a movement? So when you're thinking about your content strategy, how can you excite those 10 people and get them to share on your behalf? Because people don't believe institutions anymore. People believe their friends and family. There is really a lack of trust in institutions and institutional language. So I talked about the flywheel last year at boot camp, and we've really tried to adopt it with our clients and our Work at Capacity Interactive. And it is a fundamental model for modern marketing because customers and patrons are in the middle, at the center of it. So the flywheel is talking about the speed of growth, your momentum. How fast can your flywheel spin? And as a marketer, you have a choice to put your energy in different parts of the flywheel. The attract part, which is really top of funnel, but the delight part, which is about your customer. Delight is your customers having a great experience and talking about you, and then engages everything in between attract and delight. And then friction is what slows the flywheel. And it's great that yesterday, a lot of people were talking about friction. A lot of speakers talking about friction. A lot of people were talking about delight campaigns, like Ashley from NBC talked about that. But here's the equation. Growth equals attract plus engage plus delight squared divided by friction. Sorry for math so early in the morning, but we can do this, right? What are the two most important elements in this equation? Delight and friction, right. Because friction can slow the whole thing down, but delight has exponential growth potential. And the rest of my presentation, this went too fast, goodness, get back. So lots of my presentation is gonna be talking about delight and friction. But before I do that, I wanna share our newest research. So for the second year, we did our survey of arts ticket buyers, where we partnered with 40 arts organizations. Raise your hand if you're a part of this. Many are here today. Thank you so much. You sent a survey out to your patrons who have bought tickets in the last 2 years, and we now have a better understanding of the media habits. And it's fascinating how much things have changed even in 2 years. So I'm gonna give you a sneak peek of this data. We're gonna publish a white paper next year. I'm gonna tour around the country and share this data with you. So if you want me to come to your city, email us. So we're getting a sneak peek. You ready? I think this next piece of data is game-changing. Ready? Okay. We asked respondents to rank on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being most influential, how influential each of these sources are in making decisions to see your performance. So what you see here is the percentage of the percentage that ranked each source at a 4 or a 5. Recommendations from friends and family, numero uno. And second, content from the arts organizations. Third, by far, critical review. And then coming in last, recommendations from a public figure, celebrity, or influencer. Think about how this influences your marketing. Now, even more fascinating, when we slice this by age, look at what happens to critical reviews for younger people. The idea of the authority figure, the expert, is going away. And I'm gonna talk a lot about this concept, just fundamentally, how we look at our arts organizations and art in general is changing. And even recommendations from a public figure, celebrity, or influencer are slightly higher for people under 44, but recommendations from a friend or family member become even more important, as does content from an arts organization. So the content from an arts organization is feeding those recommendations, right? And how you're thinking about budgeting and planning your departments, I think this data is super, super influential. McKinsey did an amazing study that found out that 2/3 of touch points during the active evaluation are consumer-driven, active evaluation of buying something. Internet reviews and word-of-mouth recommendations from friends or family. This is huge. This is McKinsey saying, guess what, marketers? You have no control, right? You have no control. You can make great content, but you have to make amazing experiences. It goes back to what Michael Kaiser was talking about. It all starts with amazing art. And this is why I think a lot of marketers are frustrated, because we're doing what we've done in the past, but it's not having the same impact because you're not in control anymore. You do not control the message. It used to be, this is Mark Schaefer, he says, it used to be the brand was what we tell you it is. Now it's what we tell each other. I love this photo, right? This is, where are we? The Mona Lisa. Is anyone looking at the art? One person, right? First of all, your patrons are your marketing department, and we're going to talk about that a lot. But you need to be the place where people want to pay you to curate their feed. People are spending at least an hour with you, if not more, depending on your organization. How are you creating evangelists? How are you creating places for people? That wall downstairs, right? The selfie station, like that is there so you share it. People are taking their selfie in a museum and they're using your venue to construct their online identity, right? That's really powerful stuff. So why are they there? Who is it for? And what is it for? Like when you're posting on social media, you're telling a story to construct your identity. How can you make your institution a critical part of that story? So Colleen Dillenschneider, market researcher, she was at boot camp in 2017. She's the author of Know Your Own Bone and works at Impacts Research. I think she's phenomenal. And she said this stat that I repeat all the time, but it bears repeating. What your patrons say about you is 12.8 times more valuable than what you say about yourself. She has data to prove that. A little more math. Metcalfe's law is basically talking about networks. So networks, any group of connected things. So it basically says with each incremental person who is part of a network, oh God. So I'm just gonna say the definition. The effect of the network equals the square of the number of connected users, right? So as you add users, the impact becomes exponential. It's not linear, it's a squared. It's why delight squared, that's why delight is squared. Because of the power of our connections, the impact of someone sharing on your behalf is not linear, one-to-one, it's exponential. So like a fax machine, right? If two people have a fax machine, just everyone know what a fax machine is? No. If two people have a fax machine, it's not that valuable. If 2 million people have a fax machine, it's really valuable. If more than 1 billion people are on Instagram, that's really valuable. So a quiet interaction with your organization can't scale, but now everyone is connected. So this is about tribes, another Seth Godin concept. What tribe are you leading? If you're a chamber music organization, you need to be leading the tribe of people who care a lot about chamber music, and that's it. That's your minimum viable audience. Do everything to delight those people, right? So here's me at the Met Camp exhibition, saying to my friends, I'm the kind of person who wears a campy shirt at the Met Camp exhibit. And the Met purposely made this possible and encouraged me to do that with this mirror, with the hashtag. That was backwards, because it's a mirror. So I put my life in danger to take this next one, but I think it was worth it. The oat milk company seems to know the importance of this. And when I was in Houston with my colleagues, we were at the MFA, and they had this amazing exhibit that was part of the Van Gogh exhibit, but before you go in or after you went to the gallery, you can visit this full-size replica of Bedroom and Arles, and we can put ourselves in there. How amazing is that? Right? And pardon like my bad photoshopping, but I put together all of these with help from Megan, our amazing designer. But thinking about the power of all these people putting themselves in your art, in your experience. The cost and return of this versus, say, a newspaper ad. By the way, who here is still buying newspaper ads? No shame, come on. Be vulnerable. Put your hand higher. Well, I hope you all at least try the 50% off offer so you can at least bring it to your board, like Lynette was saying, and show that it doesn't work. But how many, if we're going to talk about impressions, think about how many impressions this got. But really, what's powerful about this is content about your brand created by a consumer in their own authentic voice receives way better engagement than content about the same product posted by a brand. In fact, I have data to prove it. Mark Schaefer did this study. Content about a brand created by a consumer in their authentic voice receives 600 to 700% more engagement than content about the same product posted by a company, right? So how are you fueling this engagement and evangelism? This ties back to the family of supporters like Michael Kaiser talks about. Who here is using Top Fans on Facebook? Raise your hand high. So Top Fans is something you need to enable. But when someone is a top fan, every time it's gamified. So every time they're engaging, they get a top fan badge. This is one of my friends, very happy that he got the Taylor Swift top fan. I'd be happy too, right? And if you accept the top fan badges, you get to show off. So I went to social media and asked what arts organizations are using this. Lynette, who was up here yesterday on the Change panel, said Ballet Met is using it, so this is their top fans. And I love this because she told me that they're treating their top fans like donors. They're inviting them to VIP events. Why? Because they're gonna post about it, because they have the exponential effect of being squared, delight squared, right? We need to know the people that really care about us. We need to know who the people are that are doing our marketing for us. It is so fundamental to get connected to those people. We have to go beyond thinking that our patrons are just lines in a database. Right? This is truly breaking the fourth wall, to use a theater term. And we have data to prove this. A Harvard Business Review, that's right, study showed that consumers who are fully connected to a brand are 52% more valuable. Ones that are highly satisfied, know the brand, are only 13% more valuable. And it is the sense of connection that makes a patron truly valuable. So the important thing is fueling that evangelism. I'm going to give you a bunch of examples of how arts organizations have done this. Here it was fueled by a very strategic and Instagrammable curtain. And you'll hear a little bit more about this case study later on our next session. But I saw this on Instagram so many times before I heard about the show. Here's where thinking about your policies is so important, like allowing phones in the theater. And I'll talk about this much more later. Here it was fueled by a strategic backdrop from my colleague, seeing Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish. And Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish is not trying to connect with the masses, right? They're trying to connect people who want to talk to their tribe and curate their feed using this backdrop. Here was fueled by playbills. Every time I go to the theater, I am taking pictures of what I'm seeing because I want to say to my social media followers that I'm the kind of person that goes to these kind of Broadway shows. Are ushers yelling at your patrons to turn off their phones? Who here has been yelled at by an usher? Right, we'll talk about that. Here was fueled by an Instagram post, my friend Jill talking about buying tickets to see Oprah in LA. And I learned about the tour from that post. Sometimes it's your building. When I was in Cleveland visiting the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I snapped this, and feeling adventuresome, I tried for the first time the Instagram questions feature. And my husband took the opportunity to respond. It gets better. I know. I guessed wrong. I'm a good husband otherwise, I swear. I really am. Post-purchase is also a huge opportunity that most arts organizations are missing. I just invested my money in seeing this show that I'm super psyched about. Give me an opportunity to share this, right? Here, Eventbrite plugs in this social plugin, but it's only Facebook. This can be way expanded beyond just Facebook. But this is something you all should be doing, giving people who bought the chance to easily tell their friends and family. And I know you don't all control your ticketing paths, but you should talk to your partners about integrating this. So I found this company called Talkable that builds these plugins. Anyone using Talkable? I would love someone to use it. It's SaaS, so it's a monthly model. You can plug this into your website. And I reached out to the Talkable folks to get some case studies. And they said that, so Tom's, I know people in my office love Tom's, the shoe company. But they said that Tom's offers these, and 8% of people who get this offer actually use it. And for another one of their clients, almost 5% of their sales come through referral tools, and the tools account for 13% of new customer acquisition, right? It makes sense. It's leveraging that friends and family data we have. So if anyone gets this and tries this, please, please, please let me know. Email me. We saw the two most influential forces when deciding to see a performance were friends and family and content from an organization. So the next big idea that I've heard from so many smart people is this, and I've heard this from Brené Brown, I've heard this from Mark Schaefer, I've heard this from so many people. We need to be more human and less institutional. We need to stop hiding behind our brand. People do not trust institutions, they trust humans. Who's a Brené fan? Who's seen her Netflix special? Who wants to be her? Or be her friend? Lots of people, right? So Brené studies courage, vulnerability, shame, and empathy, but something I've really taken away from listening to her talk is this idea about the importance of belonging to a tribe. And we're in a moment where people are more isolated than ever. We're more connected than ever, but depression rates are higher than ever, suicide is higher than ever, not to be Debbie Downer, but there is this sense of isolation, and people are looking for belonging. What does everybody want? Every patron or potential patron. They want to be seen. They want to be noticed. They want to be recognized. They want to feel a sense of connection to something bigger. People will ultimately remember how you made them feel. And in order to do this, you have to be more human in your marketing. Not like a brand, not like an institution, because people believe people. They do not believe institutions. And in many ways, as arts organizations, we are so lucky. Last year at boot camp, Luke Roderhorst from Google shared these amazing stats. 93% of people in the United States say entertainment is vital to their happiness. 92% of people think of entertainment as a fundamental human need. We're not selling car insurance. We're not selling paper clips, right? We're selling something that is vital and a fundamental human need. This is a call to eliminate your boring, dry, institutional content. You need to feed that human need. So now I'm going to talk about The Inheritance. I had the pleasure and privilege of going to London last October and seeing this play. Has anyone seen it? Right? I was so moved by the show. It's a two-part, 7-hour play. My husband is a theater historian. He was like, guess what? I got us tickets to see this 2-part, 7-hour play. We're going to spend the entire day there. I was like, oh, God. But I begrudgingly went, and I had the most amazing sort of life-changing experience. People were crying in the bathroom at intermission. I was too. It is just such a moving story based on Howard's End. And it's, it was the talk of the town. I won the Olivier Award in London. And so when I learned it was coming to New York, I followed them on Instagram, of course. And I was greeted with the most navel-gazing, internal, boring content. Like, what does any of this mean? It means nothing, right? It's not connected to the story. It's not human. It's all about them and nothing about me. This is hiding behind a brand. This is an agency saying, isn't our design clever? We're going to put it out there for you, right? There's no humanity in this. And so at the same time, I was also following Matthew Lopez, who is the playwright, who is around my age. He's a friend of a friend, so I love the play so much, I followed him. And by the way, look at this engagement. It's really, for a Broadway play, not great. So at the same time, Matthew Lopez was posting about the run-up to Broadway. And he was writing like a human being, right? His following is way smaller than the institution, but look at the engagement. It's 2 to 3 times that, and this is not that hard. He's not a professional social media person. He's a human being that posts human stories, right? And the engagement is so much better. Oh my gosh, I'm seeing faces of the cast. I'm seeing something written in a way that I understand how my friends write on social media. As marketers, we need to write like this, not like this. Good news is, the Inheritance social media has gotten better. They're showing faces. They're writing a little more human. I think if I was going to be a little picky, I'd say stop saying our. Meet our cast. Meet our very own Matthew Lopez. Make it about the audience, not about you. But this is a huge improvement. You want to be part of the experience, not the thing that people want to get through to get to the experience, right? So here's my social feed. My friend was at a gallery. An ad. This is not why I came to social, right? I didn't come here for this. I came here for content. Is your content this, or is your content feel like the stuff my friends and family are posting? So Mark Schaefer in his book talks about the squint test. If I'm going to social media and I'm scrolling and I squint, I can tell what is posted by a brand and what is posted by a human being. You want your content to pass the squint test. So here's some examples of organizations that have done this really well. The first is Ballet Met. I'm just going to play this. The engagement of that actually grew massively over time. I pulled that pretty early. But then the next two are ads. It's so human, right? It's simple and human, and they write on Instagram like my friends would write on Instagram. And same with this last one with the Clark, right? They just wrote over a painting, which I don't know if that's okay, but they did it. One way to think about this is thinking about what you sell versus what you offer. We all sell tickets, right? But what do we offer? The more human things. Connection to something bigger. Time with friends and family. Escape. Ideas. Your marketing, and especially your social media, need to reflect this, right? That connection, that humanity. And Corinne touched on this yesterday in her presentation with that amazing video that I'm going to add to this presentation for future sessions. Slover Lynette, who is a sponsor here, in their research with Ballet Austin, who is also here with a large team, they found that 2 factors brought the vast majority of people to the ballet. But this applies to any arts. The social experience of spending time with friends and family, and the emotional or intellectual reward of experiencing the art itself. And some people were motivated by both factors. So to go back to sell versus offer, what does Nike sell? They sell shoes and athletic wear. But what do they offer? They offer the idea that everyone, including you, can be an athlete or is an athlete, right? That's going to the bigger idea. So here is the Whitney showing that they offer time with family and friends and inspiration. Again, very simple, but really effective. Here's Carnegie Hall, posting from the point of view of an audience member, right? The question was asked yesterday, what do I do if I only have a bad headshot? You don't use the bad headshot, right? You tell the story of what it's going to be like. And Corinne answered that question, but this is a perfect example of that. In the language here, there is nothing like a memory made at Carnegie Hall, from breathtaking performances to applause shared with thousands. Experience the thrill. This is all about the audience. I love this campaign from the Atlantic Theater. It says, when was the last time you navigated the murky waters of early adulthood? Presumably, everyone reading this ad, we joked about like getting a bell or points every time we drop a water bottle. So congratulations. But this is about me, right? I love this from Houston Grand Opera. It's for their LGBT series, and it's a note that says, Overture is a very personal initiative to me because this community is my tribe. As the only out gay student in a small town, I know opera was my way out, and it worked. And it's signed with a picture of the person who wrote it. They're not hiding behind the institution. They're being humans telling human stories. At boot camp last year, Aubrey Bergauer showed us the California Symphony, how they changed their production detail page after interviewing millennials and Gen Xers about the concert experience, including their website. Before they underwent a full-scale website redesign, they just made some changes using that research to make their content more human. They changed paragraphs to bullets. They used technical language or jargon. They linked every page to Wikipedia. And Aubrey said it best: casual and approachable does not equal dumb. And then people said, well, my subscribers, they want this sort of elitist language. And she said, my subscribers aren't going to production detail pages. This isn't for them. This is from Mark Schaefer on the CI to I podcast. And you can listen and see how I've taken all of his ideas. Just attribution, like Christopher says, attribution is very important. So like I said to open this, so many of these ideas are not mine. But he says, be more human in everything you do, in every touch point, in every phone call, email, and event you host. How do you insert that humanity into everything you do? Because the most human company will win. So now I want to get back to the flywheel. In the rest of this presentation, we're going to talk about delight, and we're going to talk about friction. Remember, delight is squared, like Metcalfe's rule, because we're all so connected. So I travel a lot for work. In fact, I think I visited over 15 cities in the first half of this year. And I was so excited when I got silver medallion status on Delta. I love Delta. But I got this in my Instagram feed. And I love it because it's about me, right? And it's telling me about the benefits I got. It's celebratory. And there's a soft sell in there saying the next time you fly. Remember what Brene Brown says: people want to be seen. This is something y'all can replicate, right? When people become a member or a donor, you can celebrate them with the benefits with CRM targeting, using their email or contact information to reach them on social media. This Uber email, an hour after I landed in Boston and took an Uber, they gave me tips from other Uber users of places to go. This is about me. Right? And it goes right to the benefits. Like Seth Godin says, good email is anticipated, relevant, and personal. This checks all those boxes. Now, I'm going to show the example of personalized versus personal. Consumers think like less than 20% of the marketing they get is personal. Brands think it's like 80, 70, 80%, right? Like a name is just not enough anymore, right? People don't think that is personalized. So this is an email from SiriusXM, and they personalized my name, but the content they showed me had absolutely nothing to do with anything I've ever listened to. NFL, tailgating anthems, classic rock barbecue, and NASCAR. Right, great. You know what I'm listening to? And then this totally not formatted for email, for mobile well. Okay, now here's personal. This is actually beneficial from Spotify, showing me upcoming concerts by artists I love. I actually went to that, right? Lizzo. Lizzo fans? Yes. Lucinda fans? Love me some Lucinda. That's truly personalized, right? I feel seen. This is why we built Behavior Infuser, which is our plugin that takes web browsing behavior and infuses it into Tessitura so you can do more personalized marketing, right? So Google Analytics data is anonymized. With Behavior Infuser, we can de-anonymize that data and put it into Tessitura, so then you can send more personalized emails through Wordfly. So here's a quick example. Opera Philadelphia can track the behavior of users who not only abandon their cart, or abandon a production detail page and didn't purchase, and they use Behavior Infuser list criteria in combination with Wordfly scheduling. And so they can define the frequency for both abandoned cart and abandoned browse, and here they trigger an email 24 hours after a user abandons a cart or landing page for a specific production. In fiscal year 2019, Opera Philadelphia sent almost 17,000 of these emails, and their open and click-through rate was double that of their regular marketing emails. And of course, the most important number, they had almost 800 orders for close to $200,000 in revenue attributed to users who clicked or opened an email. You have to be more personalized, like Aprajita was saying yesterday, in your communication. And this doesn't just have to be digital. Here, Cincinnati Playhouse in the Park puts a note on the seat of renewing subscribers, thanking them and offering them to get a concession, right? Get a treat at the intermission at concessions. The Cleveland Orchestra, I had a really fun podcast interview. with the director of customer experience. What an amazing title for an arts organization, the Cleveland Orchestra. And he said that when first-timers buy a ticket, there's a place on their website where you can say you're a first-timer, and they have someone from their team go over and welcome the first-timer in their seats and offer them Cleveland Orchestra swag. The likelihood of the people who get that experience coming back within the first 6 months is 3 times greater than the people who don't get it. That personal human connection is so powerful. Again, we can no longer treat our patrons like lines in a database. Another thing the Cleveland Orchestra does is really cool is the idea around staff comps. We all give staff comps, right? The staff gets to see the show. And if you ever want to give our staff comps, we're happy to take them. But what they do is they strategically place their staff next to people who are at important moments with the organization. So if someone's a multi-single ticket buyer and they think they're a good prospect for a subscription, they will place their staff there. And even better, they give them vouchers for free drinks that they can use and having those conversations and give them to those patrons. Who's going to start doing this, right? So I want to share some delight campaigns. So something we started doing to fuel evangelism with our clients is exactly was what Ashley talked about in the National Ballet of Canada campaign yesterday. We used to suppress people after they bought a ticket, but now we actually invest more money because we're fueling evangelism. So here is the National Ballet of Canada's video that they showed to people who, after they had bought a ticket, and like Ashley said, it drove $76,000 in new revenue from subscriptions and single tickets. But another critical point here I want to stop and notice. This video is about education. It's about a peek behind the scenes. And marketing is really about teaching. And if you could think of your content as education, this is such a fantastic example of that. And great teaching results in change. And that's really what marketing is, right? Being a change maker, telling a story to impact change. And we're not talking about big bucks here. This is Jacob's Pillow Delight campaign. Spent $150 and got a 1,400% ROI with massive engagement because you're trying to get people to be your evangelists. Here's another example at the George Street Playhouse with Little Girl Blue, the Nina Simone musical. They had an unprecedented 91% new to file with this production. And after the production closed, our team worked with the marketing team to run a one-week thank you campaign. There was no call to action. There was no sales message. I want to underscore that and what Ashley said yesterday, right? The idea of like stopping with the like buy now, like pushy sales messaging, just telling the story. They just offered a heartfelt thank you. And they highlighted Black History Month as the play ran for a lot of February, and Nina Simone played a powerful role in the civil rights movement. But the main goal of this was just to drive engagement, not website traffic or purchases, and that's exactly what it did. These posts had engagement rates that were 9 times higher than the single most engaging post in their single ticket campaign. It's carving out just a little bit of money to engage the people, and then you can get them in your remarketing pool and for engaging with us and get them to come back to the next one. Jazz at Lincoln Center serves thank you posts to their attendees after each main performance. And they do a different message for first-time attendees with a special offer to return for another performance and one for repeat buyers that solicits feedback. And they have a thank you message. And the key page view rates for the spring 2019 campaign were 650 times higher than the single ticket campaign. So we see this pattern over and over. It works. Again, this is turning your marketing funnel into a megaphone. So onto the friction piece of the flywheel. I went to the Inbound conference, and Brian Halligan, the CEO of HubSpot, is also where I learned about the flywheel. This year talked about disruptors. These companies that are, we're in a massive time of disruption fueled by a lot of startups that are disrupting all sorts of companies, from Netflix to Spotify to Lyft to Chewy to Casper to Dollar Shave Club. These companies all have valuations of over $1 billion. And they're all very, very young companies because they are disrupting. And they sell the same things we've always bought, right? Razors, mattresses, transportation. But how they sell is why they win. They're friction destroyers. Taxi and Lyft are selling the exact same thing. A taxi and a Lyft. A place to get from point A to point B. But how they sell is why they win. Because with a taxi, it's full of friction. You need to stand on the street, perhaps for a very long time, perhaps in the rain or cold or snow. They may never come. Once you get in, they're dirty. There's no accountability if you have a bad experience. You have to exchange money. Who knew that was a thing? But it's a thing. There's no transparency of costs. It's just filled with friction. And Uber and Lyft have gotten rid of that friction. Who's bought a Casper mattress? Got some fans in the front up here. It's delightful. You go on your phone, do a few clicks, and it comes to your door like this, and you open the box and a mattress magically appears. How they sell is why they win. Compare that to awkwardly having to lay on a mattress with some scary person breathing down your throat, trying to sell you something with no cost transparency. It's the same thing. You're getting a mattress. But how they sell is why they win. Now I'm going to do a closer to home example. Who has had the massive displeasure of buying a ticket on telecharge? It is nothing but friction. And I'm shocked that anyone ever buys it. I'm going to try to buy a Dear Evan Hansen ticket on my phone. Just take a drink of water, breathe deeply. I'm honestly surprised anyone ever buys a ticket. Okay, lots of questions. Not mobile-friendly calendar. Okay, I selected my time, takes me back here again. Each time I have to go back to this. Okay, random list of prices without any context. I pick one. Now I have to pick a section. Wouldn't the price determine the section anyway? What? Apparently I did it wrong, because here I am again. It's horrible. It gets worse. Back to here. Okay, now my section. But before, this thing. Why? Why? I know, because of third-party brokers, there's other ways to do that. Here we are. Okay, I got the code wrong. Here we are again. We're a good minute or two in here. Is this when I get it wrong? Or did I get it wrong before? Okay, I got it right this time. Got it right. There's no tickets available on that time. So all of those choices were for nothing. Okay, now let's see the same thing on Today Tix. I'm going to buy a Dear Evan Hansen ticket. Buy tickets, big for my fat thumbs. The date and the price are together. I know how much it costs and where I'm going to sit. There was even the seat map below it, and now it knows because it's connected to my browser. All I have to do is pull all my information. It's already built in, and in 5 clicks, I'm at checkout. When I can use Google Pay, where it has my credit card. 30 seconds. How they sell is why they win. So I bought recently some tickets on Today Tix, and I was shocked at how many envelopes the representative was holding. And I thought about all the friction that they're destroying. 1, the cost of Broadway tickets. That's massive friction. 2, the telecharge mobile experience. I think that's the biggest piece of friction. But they're also destroying the friction of box office lines, right? And now they have an 8% market share of Broadway tickets. And I think it's mostly because of telecharge's inability to create a mobile site that's usable. But I'd like you to think about your mobile site and all the friction that you may be causing. And I'm going to give you another piece of data from our benchmark survey. In aggregate, across all age cohorts, the use of smartphones to purchase tickets online is up 12% since 2017. And it's even a more notable increase amongst certain age cohorts. 18 to 24, up 27%. 45 to 54, up 19%. And even the oldest demographics, massive increase in using mobile phones to purchase. This is the technology Micah was talking about. I just love how quickly you can buy a ticket, right, on chat. This allows guests to purchase directly from the platform and led to a 700% increase in ROI since they launched it, 20% higher ticket prices compared to industry averages, and 90,000 unique visitors have been helped with this on the Wicked websites. Did you guys know I have a dog? Just curious. Sally Wiggles on Instagram. Jay, just in case you want to follow her. And Sally has a Furbury. It's not a Burberry, it's a Furbury. It costs like $15, but we call it her Furbury. And all these fancy people on the street will pass us being like, is that Burberry? I'm like, no, I'm not buying Burberry. I don't even buy Burberry for myself. I'm buying it for my dog. But it reminded me of a story that Brian Halligan, the CEO of HubSpot, told. He bought a jacket for his dog. It didn't fit his dog because he was eating too many treats. So he went to return, and it was on Chewy.com, which is one of these disruptors. And he went to return the jacket. Returning is friction, right? You have to print out the thing, you have to like put it in a box, you have to find packing tape, you have to go to like FedEx, or at least you have to go to the FedEx or UPS. It's full of friction, right? At Chewy, they say don't bother returning it, give it to another dog. They turn the friction into evangelism. How they sell is why they win. And in fact, when you look up Chewy, their web is full of people just loving Chewy for their policies. People are raving about their return policy online. Would they write about your policies, right? I want to turn to policies because they're causing, okay. They're causing so much friction. Here the MTA gives a perfect example of what you don't want to do. Throw your internal policies at your customers. This is really simple marketing advice. If you're doing things that people hate, stop, right? Someone put that on the app. If you're doing things that people hate, stop. It's not that hard, MTA. I love this. Anyone see this? Right. So think about your policies and which ones cause friction. And I'm not saying you could easily fix them, but let's hear some friction that you guys have. Yell it out. What is it? Photo policy? Ticket exchange. Beverages. All those things. Massive friction, right? Why can't I exchange my ticket? Why? Why can't I do it? Do you want to be Verizon? Or do you want to be Spectrum? Do you want to be Comcast? Right? Is that who you want to be? Or do you want to be one of these disruptors like Chewy that people will talk about? And we're thinking about this too. About making frictionless experiences. Would offering exchanges actually increase the number of tickets people buy because it decreases fear? Like Michael Kaiser said, people are traveling, they're nervous to buy because they don't want to be locked in. If you got rid of being locked in, perhaps you'd even sell more tickets. So we talked about who's been yelled at by an usher. Right? I love this photo. My friend posted, it was at a museum. He said, if you like porcelain embroidery or chinoiserie, this really would have been your story, right? So missed opportunity for evangelism because of this photo policy. I want to talk about phones in theaters, and I don't have, this could be a whole separate session, but I want to talk about just some ideas and some things I've learned. And I don't have the magic answer for you, but it's clearly a big topic in the news. There was a recent story in the Times. I talked about when Bruce Springsteen was on Broadway, the production put an insert in the playbill saying, you could take a picture at the curtain call. He'll stay on stage long enough for everyone to take a picture. So it got rid of that anxiety, right? The Metropolitan Opera offers a similar advice on their website. And some companies, like company XIV, actually encourage picture taking because they're fueling evangelism. That's where I think we should all go. Not during the show, but we need to go to a point where we're like finding a way to encourage evangelism. So I'm personally very triggered about a blue light during a show. I think it's so distracting and it makes me want to murder people. But we have to acknowledge we are one of the few places left in the world that are separating people from their devices, and that is friction. And so I think careful conversations, and like Clive from Carnegie Hall says, asking the question, like, going and asking really big questions. And I know there's like the pouches now that people have to zip and can't use, which is one option. I heard a really great story, the pre-show message at Steppenwolf for one of their places. I'm gonna drop the F-bomb, so trigger warning. Tracy Letts was so frustrated with the cell phones that he did a pre-show message that said, "Turn off your fucking phones." And it worked. Because if you just do the same old boring thing, people tune it out, right? You have to surprise them. So like thinking about your policies around this is super, super important. And this is really about thinking about how we communicate in a new age. And I'm not saying, one thing I'm talking about a lot on the CI podcast is this change in formality around the arts. This 20th century model of the arts as being above us, of being something we have to strive to. Right? Even like the architecture of Lincoln Center, even though the organizations fight against it, there is this sense of elitism that you have to like step up to the temple of these buildings, right? They're built like neoclassical temples. And then you look at newer theaters, this is Theater for a New Audience in Brooklyn, where it's part of the streetscape, where it's welcoming. It's very, very different. It's a different idea. It's the idea of like, even in all different ways of how we're consuming art, moving away from the idea that we're the place that people go and have champagne and have this elite experience, right? That it's Eurocentric, that it's elitist, that it's, you have to be schooled in it before you have to know, before you can go to the ballet, you have to know everything about it, right? We're in trouble if we keep doing that. So this same idea of this evolution, I think, is super relevant in your communications as well. This is not in English to not call anybody out, but like thinking about how we write in our subscription brochures. Are we writing like people, or are we writing in this sort of distance, elitist way, using a genuine human voice, not writing like an institution? I love this example from the Minnesota Orchestra, evolving language and their style to be more approachable, to be less elitist. It's a really great video. To close out the friction section, when someone has a positive experience, they tell on average 9 people. When they have a negative experience, they tell on average 16 people. So people are talking, and they're talking more if it's negative. That's why friction is at the bottom of that equation. Seth Godin defines marketing as changing minds. So here is where I hope through this presentation I've helped change yours. Marketing is no longer about buying ads to interrupt as many people as possible. With the flywheel model, it's about delighting people and destroying friction. I used to say cut a print ad, create a video, which is still so true. But I want to expand that idea. Cut a print ad, change a policy. Cut a print ad, improve your mobile speed. Cut a print ad, delight someone. Cut a print ad, talk like a person. Cut a print ad, make more human content. Cut a print ad, reduce friction. You have to rethink how you budget around this idea. All these things take time and they take money, but they are square in the purview of marketing. And I love how Michael Kaiser yesterday talked about the marketing and programming connection and the fundraising connection. It's all connected. It's busting these silos up and recognizing this is all in the purview of marketing. I recently met with an institution that got $1 million to rebrand, to do a rebrand and buy a ton of media, to blow it all in 4 weeks. This is old thinking. I suggested, why don't you spend some of that money building a world-class mobile experience, or hiring amazing content creators and making institutional videos that you could use? But they said, can't do any of that. This is a gift from the trustee, and they want to see the ads all over. What a missed opportunity. So I leave you with these ideas. I hope you take them with you and make change. Adopt the flywheel. Your patrons are your marketing department. Know your top fans. Become more human. Increase delight. Reduce friction. How they sell is why they win. Reconsider your policies. Optimize your mobile site, and speak like a person. The arts needs you, now more than ever. Now go make change. Thank you. some time for questions before our break. Don't be shy. See one over here.
Hello.
Hi.
I have a question. So I was also at Inbound. We were supposed to meet and couldn't find each other with the food trucks.
Right.
But I had the unique opportunity to present to our senior leadership, our VPs and CEO and all of that. And I presented on the exact same thing about Brian and Dharmesh's conversation, especially about changing policies, refunds, and things like that. And they all were super interested and were like, yes, let's do that, and then tabled it and kind of forgot the conversation. So if you were in my position, what would you do to kind of push the envelope and say, this is something we should be doing? How can we get this to move?
I mean, this really ties back to the change panel yesterday. I mean, I remember being a young marketer and, you know, I had time and my priorities, but I feel like as people get more senior in organizations, like I said at the opening, our most precious gift is time. And like, I feel like it's so hard. When you're in a leadership position, you're so stretched for time. It's like the one thing you just don't have. And so the way things get through, like you have these great ideas, you know, obviously it's up to your leadership team to find a way to institutionalize making change and having people, but just don't stop. Keep reminding them, keep putting it out there. Find someone who could be an advocate at those meetings and at that table, because it is the right move. And the more data you can use to show them, the more you know, what Andrew said on the panel yesterday, meeting with each individual constituent and talking about how it can improve their role. All of those things people were talking about yesterday, I think they're so fundamental. You just have to be persistent, and you have to use data, and you have to go one by one, and you will be able to make the change. Thank you. Is there
Hi there.
Oh, over there. Hi.
I'm Ellen from the Boston Symphony Orchestra.
Hi.
And thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Really, really helpful. One of my questions, I think, is about longtime customers who we love so much and sometimes take on the role of ushers themselves. So when we're talking about new policies that might make, you know, new customers more comfortable, how do we gently speak to people who have been coming to our concerts for 30 or 40 years to, you know, hey, please don't, you know, scream over to aisles to tell that person to, you know, turn their cell phone off.
Sure, yeah.
So how do we
it's a good question.
keep them both happy?
I mean, it all comes down to culture, right? What is the culture within your organization? And the culture needs to come from the top. So it's about creating an institutional culture where people don't interrupt each other, where they don't scream. And, you know, and that culture can start at certain departments, but it needs to come from the leadership of the company truly embracing it. And to move into the future, we need leaders that are going to embrace that kind of culture. And eventually that kind of behavior becomes so out of the culture that it's an anti-norm. So everyone else will stop doing it. So I think it's about, I mean, if you listen to the podcast I did with Robert from the Cleveland Symphony, Cleveland Orchestra, he put together these workshops on customer experience and had the entire staff from, you know, people who are ushers, who work in the box office, and everyone took place in this training around what their values are around customer experience. And it's not something that happened overnight. It was many, many workshops led by a cultural change within the organization. So it's not going to work if you single out individuals and say, bad, good. It has to be a bigger culture change. I think there's a question over here.
Hi there. I'm curious about something, I guess, that is in the realm of breaking down silos, but I think at our organization, and I'm sure many others, we often see people or departments that are very protective of what they see as sort of their arena. So even with things like surprise and delights, getting our development colleagues to see this as something that's an organization-wide endeavor and not something that's just specific to donors that they only handle. I'm curious if you have advice on how to really kind of break down those barriers between teams so we're all rowing together.
Again, it's about culture. It's about leadership. It's about having a senior leader that recognizes the importance of that. And I think the way you make that happen is through education. It's about, when we post this video live, have a gathering of your senior staff to watch it. What city are you in? Chapel Hill. I think it has to first come with someone obviously being the change maker. And you have to, same thing we said before, this is all about change management. Being persistent, laying out the priorities, and getting people on board and hopefully pushing through change. But it's like Michael Kaiser said, we're in danger and we're at risk and silos are what destroy organizations. And if we don't look at the patron relationship as something that we all share, we're going to be in trouble. But it comes down to the culture of the entire organization believing in how important this is. All of us have a lot of work to do within our organizations to be the change makers, which is why we had that panel yesterday. But really, we will make this public and we'll share it. So hopefully that can help. I think I have time for one more question. Yes, I don't know. I'm not supposed to pick questions. Wherever the mic is. Hi, Robert.
Hey, I'm Robert from the Colonial in Boston. Reducing friction. You mentioned the Yonder pouches and things like that. So some friction is always it's unavoidable, right? We're going through it right now. We're about to do Baby Shark, and we have a lot of upset parents that infants and toddlers need a ticket because of fire code. So, and it's a barrier for people because it's a price, and we've lowered a price for babes in arms and things like that. So I guess what I'm sort of wrestling at after hearing that is, how do you measure, if there's unavoidable friction, how much friction is okay?
That's a good question. Look, every time there's a line to go down those stairs, I get so tense. Because it's friction for all of you, right? These columns are friction, right? Sorry. Seriously though, I wish they weren't there. I think inevitably you're dealing with structures that have friction, but the more you can encourage, brainstorming of what the friction is and attacking, rank it all from how, difficulty to change versus importance. And you can make a quadrant. So list everything that's friction and put it in one of 4 buckets, right? Ranked or rung, how easy it is to change and how much friction it is. Then the things that are high friction, easy to change, and then go around the quadrants from there. Yeah, great. Thank you all so much. Have a great break. We'll see you in a half hour.